Here. I'm Jerry Agard. Thanks for being along. Yesterday I got into a conversation with two young ladies, one my producer Ricky, the other traffic reporter Jessica, and we were talking about a story in the Toronto Sun that more and more apparently in the costume rental business, they see women dressing trampy at Halloween, putting on the sexy French maid costume or the slutty costume is what Ricky just said to me in my headphones, which Ricky would never do, or at least that's what she tells us. She certainly dresses modestly when she comes to work. She dresses nicely. She dresses relatively modestly. She and Jessica somewhat disagreed on this. Jessica's position seemed to be more, kind of, hey, people are just having fun. And I said, I think it says something about who you are. And momentarily we talked to Dr. Oren Amate, registered psychologist, about this. And then we thought, it's the day before Halloween. Let's talk a little more extensively about this. So Dr. Amate is here this morning. It's good to meet you finally in person.
It's very nice to meet you, too.
You've been psychoanalyzing my show by phone since I got here. I said to somebody this morning, he's becoming the official psychologist of the show, if not the host. So, welcome. First of all, I know you heard that conversation yesterday. You participated in a little bit of it. Jessica had said, basically, sometimes a costume is a costume. It's just a costume. Doesn't mean anything. Is there truth in that?
Sometimes a cigar is just a cigar.
Yeah?
So, yeah, sometimes.
Okay.
But the other times is, and you were talking about this yesterday, the fact is people have to accept that we're born hedonists. If anyone doesn't believe this, take a look at a baby. We just love to seek out pleasure. We avoid pain.
Okay.
But we learn from a very young age that we're not supposed to do that. So we put on this mask of social acceptability, and that's our persona. Halloween is a chance where we get to put on another mask to take off the original mask, and we get to tap into the true impulses that we really want to explore, the sexuality, the wildness, the craziness.
All right. And people have various degrees of how much they actually want to explore in that regard. Some people would rather dress up as something innocuous, I guess. I don't know. Maybe there is no innocuous choice.
There often is. Sometimes it's creativity. I've seen some amazing costumes, but other times it's, again, this whole idea of the sexiness or people who can act like real jerks because it's kind of like a social contract. That's one night of the year where we're allowed to do almost anything that we want within reason and get away with it.
Well, do you think there's any truth to the fact that a woman who wants to put on what Ricky would term as a slutty costume actually, to some degree, would like to live her life a little bit that way?
Well, I don't know if she'd like to live her life all the time like that, but she would definitely, a lot of people would like to tap into that sexuality that we're told we have to repress. And the fact that more and more women now, in the last couple of generations, are being told it's okay to express themselves, during everyday life. We're going to see far more people, during the Halloween, tapping into it even further, going to, to the deepest part of themselves, the true sexual urges.
So it's getting more and more okay for women to act slutty, while it gets less and less okay for guys to notice. This is a difficult dynamic, Doctor.
I don't create the mind, I just report on it.
Okay. What about that clip that we played just at the beginning? The guy called and he said that he's got a couple of friends who are going to go together, one as Paul Bernardo and one as Russell Williams, two of the most notorious horrible monsters this country has produced. And in terms of the Russell Williams, too soon, as far as I'm concerned.
Definitely too soon, and the fact is, again, this is a chance for somebody to tap into the part of them that they can't normally tap into. It's a kind of aggression almost. It's like, basically saying they're giving the finger to a lot of different people. They're getting to again, it's that dark impulse in all of us that we have that we're not allowed to express. So they're doing this, and it does tell a lot about you. Same as humor. I can say the most horrible thing about you, and all I have to do is put LOL at the end, and I get away with it. We do this all the time.
I used to live in the South in the United States, and there was a thing they used to joke about there, where, and especially women would use this, she just looks horrible in that dress. Bless her heart. They would always say, bless her heart. And that made it okay. But if you want to dress up as a fairly recent serial killer in the news, it's sort of, what, you think it's funny? Or are you giving a finger to society? That seems over the top.
Well, it is over the top. It shows lack of judgment. And but they know, even though they're sober while they're doing it, they're not in costume while they're thinking about it, they know that night they're going to get a free pass to be as, socially irresponsible and ugly as they can be.
All right. Well, you brought in some pictures of yourself and some of your previous Halloween costumes, and you've got a darker side, no question.
The only difference is that darker side isn't too repressed.
I see. It's out there.
It's out there to a degree, and it was just convenient. Unlike most people, I've never, from a young age, I wasn't really told to repress my sexuality. I'm not walking out, as you can see, I'm dressed here, pretty well.
Yeah, you didn't come in the buttoned-up suit.
No suit, but I'm also not wearing my garters. So.
Okay, well, okay. Well, do you want to describe? I mean, you're dressed up as a Playboy bunny in one of those Halloween deals. I'm assuming that was Halloween, or was that just a regular evening in college for you?
No, it was Halloween. It was about 20 years ago, and basically the difference is for me it was just what was in my closet because I was raised by the woman who opened up Canada's first sex store almost 40 years ago. So my norms are different from other people. I'm not afraid to to tap into that sexual aspect.
All right. Do you think that there would be maybe another story if a woman decides to dress up as Little Bo Peep?
Little Bo Peep. Aside from sheep fetish?
I don't know. I mean, or is it just sometimes it's just a
sometimes
costume?
It's just a costume.
Yeah.
But again, when we go to the extremes, when you see these either the sexual or really provocative or like the distasteful, I think that's really showing that people, that's my excuse to really tap into the part I'm not allowed to. And Carl Jung talked about this balance. The persona is the public image that we present. But the flip side of that is the shadow, the dark side of us. And we're not allowed to really access that usually. We can't even speak our mind half the time. Well, you do. You've got no problem with that. But most people would be afraid to. And it causes a lot of tension. So one night of the year, you get to just release it all.
Registered psychologist Dr. Oren Amate.
You can listen to Jerry Agar weekdays 9 to noon on NewsTalk1010.com.
Ever know who somebody else is? Maybe to some degree we don't know who we are, and we tend maybe at Halloween to explore it just a little bit more because we have permission and we give ourselves permission to put on a mask. Even if you don't literally put on a mask, your costume, whatever it is, says something about you. And Dr. Oren Amate, registered psychologist, is with me to talk about this. So you kept saying, you said a couple of times here, exploring the darker side. The darker side of us doesn't have to be anything that is necessarily dangerous or evil.
No, it doesn't have to be dangerous or evil. A lot of it's sexual, and people don't like to think about that. But we spend so much of our lives having to repress that part of us. But again, children as well are born sexual beings. If it feels good, we want to do it.
Mm-hmm. And can there be a dangerous side to this? I mean, can you look at somebody once in a while and think, the choices that person is making on Halloween are a little disturbing?
Sometimes. I mean, if they let themselves go too far, even though we take off the inhibitions, usually there's some part of our brain that kind of says to stop here. Some people go way too far, and especially when you throw in alcohol or other drugs, that's when we get some real problems.
I'm glad you mentioned that, and especially with alcohol, because alcohol is the legal way to kind of medicate yourself as opposed to some of the other drugs. A lot of times people are drinking, and then they do things that become an embarrassment to them, socially inappropriate, and they try to say, well, I'm sorry, I was drinking. But a lot of us, I tend to feel, no, I think we saw the real you.
That's exactly, I tell all my students, people say that wasn't me, it was you. That's your id, that's your wild, natural impulses that you spend most of your waking day trying to repress. And so we act out, we say and do things that we wouldn't ordinarily do. That's the shadow, but it's not that we don't want to.
Okay, what about then another extension of that? Boop, 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 on your cell phone and send out the text message, and then later you're sorry you did it, but that really was kind of you.
That was too, and it's just you didn't have the impulse control at the time. You were overwhelmed by your emotions, and you just sent it out, not thinking of the consequences, which is exactly what happens with alcohol. We lose our inhibitions, and we're not thinking ahead of the consequences, which is why we do these things that we wouldn't ordinarily do.
So what a wonderful time a Halloween party is. You've got a combination of you get to dress up as the real you, and then you get to drink, and a Halloween party ought to be either the most fun or the least fun you've ever had in your life.
Exactly. Well, with cell phones and pictures nowadays, the best fun that night, next morning not so fun.
Not so fun when it's on Facebook. All of a sudden. And so here we are kind of bringing our real selves out. But is there perhaps a healthy aspect to this? That we find those occasions like a Halloween or sometimes during the year people have costume parties, that it's actually healthy for us sometimes to just let ourselves go.
Again, as long as it's not excessive, I think it is because, the research shows when you repress all this anger, hostility, fear, and so on, it doesn't go away. It just gets kind of bottled up and it gets released in other ways. This way, it's a socially acceptable way to get rid of that negative energy. So I think it can be healthy.
All I did is I got some black and white makeup, stage makeup, and it's sort of a Kiss-inspired Star Child kind of thing, only because the Star Child one is easier to do than, the Demon or some of the other Kiss things. Realistically, and you tell me what you think this says about me, if I had the time and wanted to go out and purchase some things, because if I were going to do it, I'd want to do it totally right, I would have dressed up as Alice Cooper.
Right.
I'd have done the makeup. There still would have been the makeup, but I would have had the whole outfit and maybe even the leather jockstrap on the outside and the whole deal. I mean, what does that say about me?
And the decapitated head does usually.
Well, I don't know if I'd have carried around the decapitated head, but if I could have rented a boa constrictor, that might have been kind of cool.
Well, again, that's part of the dark side of you that you're releasing, and you're excused. You're allowed to do it, and again, we all have that side. Most of us aren't able to tap into it.
Yeah.
So I think it's closer to your service than most people because you're able to speak your mind, and you're able to go to places that a lot of people are afraid to. Because you release it, but you do it with control. You have enough impulse control and judgment not to go too far. You push the envelope farther than most people, but not over the edge. And most people are afraid they don't have that control.
Do you think there's an element of the reason that somebody like Alice Cooper might be popular, or that a particular, if not me, some other talk show host might be popular with people because they're getting to see or hear something that actually they wish day to day they could do? I would say that to my family, what he just said, but I can't. But I'm happy he said it.
Exactly, they're living vicariously. I mean, that's what music. That's what a lot of musicians are all about as well. People are living their lifestyle through them.
Here is Alan. Alan, welcome.
Hi there. Just a question. My son is 16 and last week he saw the Mad Max movie with Mel Gibson, and he wants to dress up like, he got the leather outfit and the the fake shotgun. And I was telling him because of the bad publicity Mel Gibson has right now, he shouldn't do it because, it's not a good idea. What do you think?
Well, I think it'd be scary if he just went as Mel Gibson, not the Mad Max character. But I think, the Mad Max character, in fact, has been used by so many different people since then. So I think he can get away with not saying that I'm not being a Mad Max or Mel Gibson supporter. I don't think it's that bad.
I'm Mad Max. I'm not Mel Gibson.
Exactly. I'm a movie character, not the guy behind him.
Thanks, Alan.
All right.
All right, I appreciate it. Well, in fact, Alice Cooper says that about his act on stage. He said, that's not me. Because he's a Christian, and some people hassle him about sort of the way that bad guy character acts. He says that the Alice Cooper character is Captain Hook, but not as nice, and he says I'm playing a role, and that's what he's doing.
Exactly. No, I work with entertainers as well in my practice, especially comedians, and they truly, they say who they are on stage. That persona is completely different from every aspect of their lives, and every honest comedian will say the same thing. They've learned a way to what we call sublimate or channel all that negative energy into a positive endeavor.
Well, I have good friends. Some of my very best friends actually are comedians, and one of them says, "Yeah, it is me, but it's me taken to a totally different level.
Right.
It's not the way he'd want to live."
Right. And it's the same with musicians like Slash and all these other musicians, pro wrestlers, all these guys who play a character. The easiest ones are the ones who are really, again, just exaggerating the true self.
Yeah.
But it's temporary. You can't live your life
That's right. But that does come back to why we wanted to talk about this for Halloween, is that if you're the woman who dresses up in the slutty costume, the guy who dresses up as Elvis, the guy who dresses up as Alice Cooper, there's an element that you that wants to be that way.
Yeah, it's that pure fun, it's hedonism, and like I said, we get to do things we're not able to do usually, and it's a healthy release.
What does it say about Prince Harry when he dressed up like a Nazi for Halloween?
It tells you about his upbringing, basically.
His upbringing by those pinheaded royals. Those pinheaded inbred royals. Or was it a rebellion against the structure of being in that family, I wonder?
It could very well be. That's what a lot of people do around that age, or as teenagers. We're programmed to rebel. So, and given the rigidity of that family, you go to the far extreme. Nazis are pretty extreme. So
that's pretty much as extreme as it gets. Dr. Oren Amate, registered psychologist, with me on News Talk 1010.
Thanks for listening to the Jerry Agar Podcast. Check out Jerry Agar weekdays 9 to noon on newstalk1010.com.